We're ready to begin our first panel, which is a part of our lineup on big business. And we're here with ApexBrasil, who is our sponsor. And to kick us off, we'll hear about something that will base all the next discussions during this festival. It will be a presentation from Abragames, the Brazilian Developer Association, and ApexBrasil. We're going to hear the results from the first survey on the Brazilian gaming industry to understand how Brazil became a true hub for developing games and a major breeding ground for talent. So you can send us your questions at ask.biggames.gg. You can send us your questions, and the best ones, the most, let's say, insightful questions will be asked to our guests. So we're very happy. Let me stand on the right place to invite to the stage Helena Russi, the Director of Operations at Abragames, Rodrigo Terra, the President of Abragames, co-founder and CTA, Carolina Caravana, who is not here, the VP of Abragames and CEO of Aleta, Eros Ramos, the CEO of ApexBrasil, and Claudio Lima, the CEO of Druid Game. Is everyone here? Well, Eros hasn't arrived yet, but as soon as he does, he'll join us on the stage. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being here. We're very happy to be here, as everyone said during the opening session. It's great to be back in person. I have the CEO of Abragames with us, Rodrigo Terra. Good morning. And we have the VP, Carolina Caravana. And Claudio Lima, who is actually a great partner, a friend who is giving us a gift at Abragames because we're celebrating our 18th anniversary. So their agency handles our brand, and I'm going to ask our slides to be projected or our video to be played. So let's see the first presentation, and we'll hear about this gift. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be here so I can show this to you. Abragames is having its 18th anniversary, and if you know our logo, our visual identity, 2 days ago, it was still 18 years old. So when we started working with the Abra team, we decided to change the image as a priority, and Abra has a very important role in representing the Brazilian gaming industry abroad. I went to an event outside of Brazil earlier this year, where Abra was there representing us, and we saw that it was time to breathe fresh air into the brand. You know, everyone likes having our T-shirts. You see that people line up where you have the best shirts, so that was our ambition. And besides the brand, we brought in a concept that we want to translate a lot about what we're telling you about. We know that a lot of what is done in Brazil, major games are created here, so often parts of the games we love to play are being made here and we don't even know about it. And our creativity in gaming has existed for a long time. I love this example, which is the Wonder Boy game that was localized in Brazil as Monica's Gang. If you played this in the 90s, you know how successful it was and how it was a very simple way of showing our creativity. And even though new generation console and most powerful video cards and components are being created online, Brazilians are known for using everything in their favor to create something incredible. So we're specialists at creating gameplay. Everything that is playful, everything that is about having fun, is what we specialize in. So based on that, we created this new concept for Abragames. It's a concept for the gaming industry and how we're going to take it abroad so that people understand the Brazilian gaming industry. And this is our statement. Play is made in Brazil. This is what we want to tell everyone about. When you hear about the gaming industry, when you hear about a Brazilian publisher, this is what you need to know. This is what Abragame represents. Play is made in Brazil. So we built our logo and colors. Let's see a video that's going to explain it better so that we can make the best of our time. How do we bring in the Brazilian colors? How do we enrich it? How do we unbundle the different elements that we have in our activities to make it look better? So this is our logo, which you can see on the backs of the chairs. It's focused on the word and bringing it and integrating it with visual elements. We're almost at the video. So this would be our KV, our key visual, how we build Abragames with colors, with characters. And this is a video that we created that explains the concept behind it. From that starting point, I have another video I want to show you about some of the pieces we created, showing how we're going to use it in fact, how the website was redesigned, when we have any announcements on social media. There's a lot of material here that we're going to start using that express our ideas better. So in global events, if anyone wants to hear about us, these are pictures that we took during the last event of the TVs and a T-shirt we want to put out. This is a video that tells us a bit about the rationale behind it. So that's it. Playing is made in Brazil. Congratulations for your 18th anniversary.
Bom, obrigada, Cláudio.
Thank you, Claudio. Here at Abragames and the Brazil Games Project, we have to thank you for that beautiful gift. It's a great logo, and I'm going to let my chairman and this VP make their comments about it. Well, at Abragames, we've always heard that we needed to change, to breathe fresh air into our communications, that we needed to bring Abra to the current moment we are in this industry, with the global spotlight on our industry and the growth we're having in Brazil. We'll see it expressed in numbers here. We are a whole different country in terms of gaming and game development here. So we wanted to put Abra in that new place. Previous administrations had wanted to do this, and we really wanted to position ourselves and take a stand. With Druid's effort, we started taking the first steps. Placing Abra, I'm not going to say in the 21st century, but in their rightful place, transforming Brazil into one of the biggest game development hubs in the world. So we're working on our communication and the succession that represents a good share of the studios in Brazil. So We wanted to bring that into our communications. We wanted to transform Abragames into a place where studios and developers really feel represented. When you look at Abragames, we hope you see yourselves starting this year as an association that is at a different level. And of course, we want to communicate all of the games that are happening and being created in Brazil as well. So we wanted to bring a new feeling. It's not only about our communications and our visual features. Of course, we're going to try new things. We're going to get some things right and some things wrong. We're going to make mistakes. So we are a community, and we want to get your feedback on communication, on any issues you may have. So this is a new position that we're going to build along with everyone. Carol? That's perfect. One of the things I used to say about our communications before is that I basically only accepted the invitation to come in because we wanted to do it. We wanted to change it. So I'm happy now. Hold on, there's still a long way to go. But yes, I do think the association has existed for a long time, 18 years, and the communication that we had in the past and what we do now, who we're talking to and why, is different. So it needed to be renewed. That was the first thing we wanted to do. So from now on, we're starting this conversation and we're understanding what we want to talk about. So that was the first thing. The briefing we got was that every game developer in Brazil needs to know that Abragames exists, that it is possible to come in and talk to us, and that we have a lot to talk about. So that's the idea behind it. And this is something that we want to make clear for everyone. Abragames has its doors open to talk to anyone who wants to talk to us. Yes, and I have to thank Druid publicly. They're represented here by Claudio, but Bernardo is also here because from our perspective, only Druid was able to really understand our needs as a game developer association. We really needed someone who understood the gaming market as they did so that we could translate this to the game developers and their representatives in Brazil. So thank you for this partnership. It was wonderful. Claudio, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Well, we're having a new partner after 18 years, so there's a lot to be done. Feel free to step down if you'd like, because we're going to switch gears. We're going to move to the main topic. Of course, this was very important, presenting our new logo. But Abragames is a national association, and it represents companies. We don't have any individual developers in our association, but we can help them and show the path if anyone wants to follow that trail and become a company. But I just wanted to give you that information. Abragames has a very important partnership with a Brazilian agency called ApexBrasil for exports and investments. They've been our partner since 2013, and they have helped us to be a player in the global gaming industry. You might not know, but we just like to underscore that the game industry has global opportunities. Games that are developed in Brazil can be localized to several languages, several cultures, and games travel very easily. They can be played in China, Japan, the US. If you're a developer, you know how it works. So we needed a strong partner that could help us to take our games to the rest of the world. After all, this is a $200 billion industry, and Brazil has a 4% share of this great big world of opportunities. So I'm the operational director at Abragames, but I'm also a leader for the export project called Brazil Games. Eros Ramos, who represents ApexBrasil, is probably stuck in traffic. He hasn't been able to join us, so that's why I'm saying these things on his behalf. And I'd like to thank Apex for being the partner at this event. Our B2B side, the business rounds, the speakers, we have 140 hours of content here with simultaneous translation, is the fruit of this partnership. They made a big effort. And why are we being translated into English? We're here to show the best of what Brazil has to the rest of the world, and we want to bring the best from the rest of the world to Brazil. This is our mission. In this room, all sessions will be recorded and streamed, so this can be sent to anyone who wants to watch it in Japan, in Korea, wherever. But now let's get to the core of our panel, because for many years, actually, I'm going to let our chairman speak about it. Why did we have this survey? The survey or the study, whenever we have interactions with other audiences and with new players, endemic or non-endemic, that is, players who are in the industry and who are just joining the industry, and many international associations and entities often ask us about one thing. They wanted to have continuous data mapping on the Brazilian market. So the Brazilian game development and services market is very important. Everyone has their eye on us. Everyone wants to do business, develop games, hire services, invest in studios, buy a studio, have a merger, and we're seeing these investments happening, but we did not have a lot of data. We didn't have any proposals to map our industry continuously. Of course, there were previous initiatives which were very important. Our census, sponsored by the Brazilian National Development Bank. They weren't maps, but they did have surveys in the industry. But this is the first study that we had with ApexBrasil, so that we could have a continuous stream of data on how we're growing in different areas and how we're becoming more important. So this will be a moment in which we'll be talking about numbers and data, but we're very proud of having information to show to everyone that we really have been a growing market that will continue to grow and become relevant for the rest of the world. So we have surpassed $2.3 billion in the world. Brazil is the 10th biggest market in the world. 75% of our population play frequently. We're a mobile-first country, and this was made clear during this survey. Another important factor is that we're multicultural. Our people are represented in the games that the world wants to consume from now on. So being multicultural is one of our features, and the more we have this DNA in our games, the more interest there will be from the rest of the world about what we do. Our flexibility and adaptability are ingrained in our culture, and they also make international companies and even Brazilian studios work with each other very easily. We're not talking about how Brazilians find easy fixes, but there is a little bit of that. We're able to handle things, we're able to speak different languages, look at different cultures in a way that provides integration. And maybe by chance, we're also very good at working from home.
We're really good at remote working. And by the way, our time zone here is an interesting one because for the rest of the industry. If you look at China, if you look at Asia more specifically, or even the US and Europe, you have a big gap as far as the time zone. And Brazil is somewhere in between. So it's 6 hours to the East Coast in the US, another 6 to Eastern Europe, and even if you work with Asia, it's a little easier than those that are in the West Coast of the US. So Brazil is dead in the center of LATAM. It's a entry, it's a gateway to game developing in Latin America. And one number that is actually a surprise to us and a reason for us to be happy, we sort of knew it by feeling, but the fact is that we have 1,009 game studios in Brazil. Of course, this number is not exact. We know that there's more. We know that there's more people doing something in this country that are not accounted here, but this number is quite representative of the industry's growth, and you can see that in the survey, and you can see that in the survey that we're going to be made available in our portal. You can check it out in our site. But let's see our highlights here. So we are working on the Horizon franchise, Goku, working with Gorilla. We also have some other development companies that are involved on AAA games, whether it's in the artwork, whether it's in development, whether it's on QA. So we're definitely growing in this sector, on this XD, external development sector. Wildlife is our first Brazilian unicorn, and as a matter of fact, the first one in LATAM. It's one of the leading players in mobile all around the world, and that was born and bred here. We have companies that are already multinational. We have Arvore, which is a company that has been doing this, that has been taking innovation to the market. So they were awarded with the Venetian Film Festival Award. After 76 years that Brazil hasn't gotten an award, the first one was with AI, after all this time. It was a short animation film, and also the Primetime Emmy for animation, so that's a huge acknowledgement. I'm biased, but in any case, Netflix distributes Brazilian games from Gazeus. It's the first Netflix games platform, and we are part of that. We are now competing on for the attention. You can see that, if you don't want to watch any series, you can play some games. And you'll also have Akiris that is getting some investment, and from Epic Games. Epic Games, in this case, is the first relevant investment maker here in Latin America. So these players are now taking part of that conversation. We are increasing distribution, and we are making it clear that Brazilian games, as I always like to say, is just as good in quality, or maybe even better than what we see abroad, especially our indie games. I think that we have a certain energy that you don't see anywhere else in the world because of all these factors that we already mentioned. Octagon is being purchased, is being acquired by Fortis. Jefferson is actually in Portugal and is joining forces and creating this group, Fortis, which is we're definitely going to have to keep an eye out for these guys because they're about to blow up. Roommate is also acquiring Puga. So you see a lot of M&As, you see a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and you see a lot of companies being bought here back and forth. And this is something that is just unprecedented in the 20 years of the market. These are some macro numbers here. So we're moving away from 133 studios in 2014, and now in 2022 we are hitting 1,009, the largest development market in LATAM. Great stuff, and it's worth mentioning that out of those 1,009, Brazilians know that, right? We are talking about startups. A lot of gaming companies are like that. So the first 3 years are really deadly for most companies. A lot of them cannot survive past those years, and a lot of them have gone through that. It's sort of the valley of death, the first 3 years for a startup. And these are companies that made it through and that are definitely going to pan out. And one thing that you mentioned, which I think it's quite interesting, is that besides us having more studios all over Brazil, we also have stronger studios that are now verticalized. The number of staff per studio has grown substantially as well. Early on, we were actually concerned because we saw companies becoming verticalized and growing, and we felt nothing would be left at the very first steps, the very basis. As a matter of fact, I want to thank our colleagues here because they sent us that survey. It's work that took months. But let me continue here.
Pronto.
Carol.
Moving on.
Então, gente, isso é uma coisa muito interessante também.
Right, folks. So this is something that is really interesting as well.
O Sudeste como sendo uma
Clearly, the southeast of Brazil is a hub for those companies. And southern Brazil also sees a lot of action. But one thing that we see as being very positive is that all over the national territory, we see companies popping up here and there.
associações regionais.
You also have regional associations come into play. They are talking amongst each other. They have a dialogue. They are connecting and helping each other. And indeed, all over the country, if you look at it, for example, online, you can search for the collectives in your region because you do have companies in every territory nationwide. So that confirmation for us is really positive. This is not like, oh, everything is in the southeast. No, it's not like that. The thing is, now we have companies nationwide, all over the national territory, and this is really important to us. The idea is for us to continue to foster those studios, to promote those activities, and make sure that they have the necessary support. And we want to promote more dialogue to make sure that everyone can start at
De não estar sozinho, exatamente.
they can start and not work alone, right? So that's how important the regional companies are.
As regionais
It's precisely that.
estão montando agora
We are also setting up sort of a council of regional companies at Abragames, and the different regions are now in communication. We want to keep in touch, and we want to make it a long-term thing. So if you want to connect with your region's association and connect to Abragames, we have a possibility to get that step further and get international.
o alcance internacional também é muito
International reach, this is also really, really important. Obviously, we are here and we are conducting a survey to try and assess the situation to see how companies are becoming more international,
chega lá, quais são
how we can make it there, what are the problems involved, what are some attention points along the way.
ali, por exemplo, em 57%
And it's interesting to see that 57% of developers had international revenue in 2021. This is really important. The international market for starting studios, for beginners, are also crucial, not only for the seasoned ones, but from the very beginning, the international market becomes key for Brazilian studios.
absolutamente
And to us, this is absolutely relevant, especially because of the exportation project that we have.
para os gráficos.
Let's move on to the graphs.
No caso da participou de eventos internacionais, 39%.
Well, so 39% of the companies have participated on international events,
Tem vendas internacionais.
33% have participated on business rounds.
Tem relações públicas, né?
You have companies that have PRs, right? International PR to have a presence abroad. So there are many points that we assess in our survey. And the actual program, Brazil Games,
Alô, técnica. Tá passando.
O
we
próprio
just got the presentation back on the screen. So in any case, Brazil Games is constantly assessing all the companies that are participating in the program, but it's not only the companies that participate in the program that, you know,
eventos se interessam
that are attending the events, that are getting involved.
por fora.
You have some other initiatives that are happening outside of it. So it's really interesting to see that.
Tá chegando aqui o parceiro que eu comentei com vocês, fundamental.
I'm seeing our partner here that is just walking in, essential to our initiatives. Eros Ramos, representing Apex Brazil, just walked in.
Maria Paula, que sentou ali escondidinho.
Maria Paula is tucked away. She's also from Apex Brazil, sitting there in the corner. I also said a lot about Apex and just how important it is to work with Abragames in this Brazil Games project, but I'll just let you speak a little bit about Apex because I didn't get into the specifics. And that slide is actually strategic for that.
Certo. Bom, gente, bom dia.
Well, folks, good morning.
Pequeno problema.
I apologize for my being late. We had a bit of an issue. My name is Errol Silva. I work in ApexBrasil. I manage all the projects and the programs exports portfolio, including the gaming one. And today I'm in charge of 3 sectors of the economy for technology, innovation, and games. So us at ApexBrasil, we support Brazilian companies, or we promote direct initiatives, or even partners, as it is the case with Abragames, to promote Brazilian companies and to help them develop and be competitive internationally, to attract foreign investment and to be players worldwide. So it's an honor for us to have this project with Abragames since 2013. We supported BIG for the first time in 2012. So it's been 10 years in the making, so we're really happy with all the results we got based on our strategic positioning.
Cuidado aí. Então, a gente teve essa oportunidade de
In any case, we did have an opportunity this year.
criar essa pesquisa.
We created this survey,
Foi muito exitosa porque superou todas
and that was great because it really overcame all of our expectations as far as the number of companies we surveyed
potenciais clientes, né?
and also the potential customers we might have.
Agora temos a obrigação de ampliar.
As of right now, we are obliged to expand our scope even more. We used to have a different vision up until February, and since then, we completely changed the way that we see you guys. We completely changed the way that we see our foreign investors. So this is what Apex does,
A gente trabalha em parceria
and this is what we do. We are in a partnership here with Abragames, with Brazil Games, and you rest assured you can see that there's going to be a lot of surprises coming down the pike. In the next few years, we're going to completely renew the current sectorial project and get into a new phase.
informações estratégicas.
We're going to make use of all the strategic data that we are collecting right now.
Então, gente, tem uma
Great arrows, thank you. So folks, you have an entry gate here for the international market. If you are working in games, you can come over. The Brazil Games project is out here, and we can take you to the next step. So let's see the next slide here. Moving on.
Vamos também agora para uma parte da pesquisa em que a gente
Let's get into this side of the survey here. This one is quite important as well for our mapping, which is about technological knowledge. A lot of times in the past, we didn't really fine-tune our assessment, but this year, we started mapping out this more granular side of the data as far as how the studios are getting prepped tech-wise, so what are people doing, what are they using as far as tools to be able to deliver the best games.
começa a olhar pelas engines, né? Então a gente
We start looking at engines.
intenso em relação
We wanted to do a more intense mapping as far as what type of engines are being used in the industry.
estamos no mercado.
Obviously, we are in the market. We are working with it. We are always talking about it. But it's interesting to get a look at the numbers. So indeed, there is a very strong adoption of some key engines.
Investem, né?
And these are some of the engines that are investing in technology to be able to facilitate game development. So as a highlight here, we still have a very relevance to the main engine tool here. Unreal is ranked second just after Unity. That is also growing in the country. Great tool. We have Blender Engine, which to us was really surprising. We didn't really expect that to show up as in one of the leading engines being used by a large percentage of the studios. And you have the other engines that I'm sure you're acquainted with. But what is interesting about it is that they emerge as engines where you can deliver games and you can deliver services using those tools. So you have Construct, Game Maker, you have Godot, and it's really cool for us to take a look at that granular data for the first time. And also a qualified and diverse labor.
Começar a entender mais
We wanted to expand our survey to understand a little more about the diversity of our labor.
Eu fico muito
Kara's going to talk about it.
na verdade.
I'm actually really happy to take a look at that data. Even though we are not in a place that is ideal, we did grow this number since the last 2 runs, since the last 2 times we ran that survey. And just take a look at how the market grew. I mean, the numbers are quite expressive here. Our focus, obviously, is to reach 50% diversity on all the companies.
não só no quantitativo, mas no qualitativo.
not only quantitative but also qualitative, to be able to improve the overall picture, but we did make some important advances in the last few years.
Atualmente,
And the smaller the studio today, the more diverse it tends to be. So this is also some interesting information. They start diverse in their origin, and when it's time to scale up, sometimes they struggle with it, but there is an attempt to do so. So that makes everyone everyone really satisfied, and we are going to work to make sure that continues.
a gente também tem, né, vários cursos de graduação.
Additionally, we have a lot of graduate level courses, and when it comes to undergraduate courses, we are also getting involved. We are talking to the different institutions to make sure that this is still a relevant point, to make sure that they consider diversity in those courses, because if we don't have diversity in the courses, we're not going to have diversities in the businesses later on. This is also very interesting. And the private sector still has the majority of the courses. We don't have a lot of public courses on public universities and public institutions yet. There are some scattered here and there, but it's much more private at this moment. So this is one other thing that we would like to show to the sector. By doing this survey, we can show that this is a relevant industry, and if the numbers increase, it'll be great.
Só reforçar esse ponto, né? Olha como
I just want to stress that point. I mean, that's how important surveys are. We can understand how to formulate public policies. So the private sector accounts for 99.73% of this offering, over 4,000 courses between technical courses and undergrad courses. So truthfully, we have to send out that message to all the public sector spheres, because we have to include that in the schedules of the public universities and different educational initiatives. We have to include that to make sure everyone gets access to that offering. After all, gaming is an industry that really can give you a career. It can really help you make a living. That's why it's so important for us to show this information and to bring this data out to the table. And, it's a new moment in the public sector. Moving on.
Vamos lá. Da nossa capacidade.
Getting right to it, production capacity. We also did a mapping to understand how prepared we are and what exactly we are doing. I mean, who are the customers, if you go straight to the consumer, or if you go to a business, if you are working in the entertainment market, or maybe different markets like corporate training, education, or different sectors that are also involved, that know that games are a way for you to harness this sector. One number that is interesting here that stands out, 93% of studios generate intellectual property. So they work and develop international property. Over half use their own, so they generate their own intellectual property, and 13% license their IP to third parties. And by the way, remember that Brazil is still in its journey. We are still maturing. I mean, 13% is a substantial number. Of course, we want to quadruple that percentage in the coming years. But just to see that we are licensing some of our stuff, some of our IPs that are homemade, this is already great. And you have all the services around the production chain. Nearly for all of them, we have at least one company that exports part of the production process. So you have external development all across the chain, from the very conception all the way to the design. One observation that is interesting about IP is that I've been keeping tabs on this information for the last 12 months, more in depth, and we noticed that IP is the very crux of game development, because you can transform that IP into a game, into a book. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that you can do with that intellectual property. So I'm very surprised and very happy to see this number, and it also gives us some responsibility, because we gotta be able to work in a way to make sure that small studios can start keeping their radar on and realizing that game licensing, or even working with publishers, all of that is starting to involve intellectual property. So publishers, they are more and more putting that thing in the contract. So they insert IP not only for games, but for whatever licensing you may be speaking about. So in the next 2 years, we do hope that we can tackle this topic with our community. And by the way, folks, this vision can only be made possible because people are answering that survey.
We identified over 1,000, as you heard, that work in the gaming industry, but I believe that we could have reached more participants who filled the survey until the end, who answered until the end, because it is only by doing that that we can get a better outlook, or actually to have a full outlook. Without that, we are blinded. So we create a map, a road to follow, but often you need to change your path midway through. So once again, I'd like to underscore, and I'm sure that this was said before, it is very important to fill out the full survey. Yes, this is essential, and we benchmarked with other countries like US, Canada, France, UK, about how they understand their industries, and it is done through surveys. This is the first. We intend to have a survey of this kind every year so that we can have a guideline for how we're going to continue developing the industry in Brazil and internationally. So again, please pass this message forward. It is very important to fill the survey out so that we can create mechanisms that will take our industry in the right direction. We're very happy that we have this first version, of course, and we'll continue to do it. So do you need to be a member? If your company is not ready yet, if you don't feel it's the right time, the survey is for everyone, for every studio in Brazil, regardless of where you are. We need to understand this industry, and it's very important because that's the only way in which we can help the government to have public policies. That's how we can talk to international associations, studios in our program, and events, and even other initiatives as well. It is only in the first survey that we can get this information. Of course, it's 30 pages, you need to run your studio, you need to deliver your art, but if you don't find the time to do it, you can be sure that you're not contributing to something that can give your company great returns in the future, because you're the ones responsible for making others understand how important this industry is. So your participation is very important. If you're a member, if you're not a member, if you started your studio yesterday, if you're at this festival for the first time, please do fill it out. If you have a formal company or not, if you are an affiliate, if you know about it, if you don't know about it, if you're a professional, if you are an employee at a company, take a look at the survey. And for the next ones, we're going to have better deadlines, and we'll improve it as the years go by. But the idea behind it is to have a yearly survey with a longer timeline. Yes, let's set our egos aside and let's get together. You can't only complain. The government will have more incentives to move and to expand if they have more information. We live in a world of data, and you know it. You use your data to sell your games and to get more clients to buy your games. So the government also needs data. Without data, we are flying blindly, because I'm representing a government agency, and we're often on the other side of the table because we have other industries that we have to discuss with. So with data, it really makes it easy to persuade our superiors. So please leave your egos aside. This data will not be shared with the IRS. Don't worry about that. We have a very serious policy on how we manage data. Eliana is very good at that. Rodrigo and Carl are very firm on managing who has access to data and making it transparent. So feel free to tell us and help us help you. To speak of transparency, the survey is available now on our website, Abragames and Brazil Games, in Portuguese and English. The fact sheet, or the shortened version, is this book right here. If you don't want to look at all the details, you can also access it on our website. It's in Portuguese and English. The PowerPoint presentation is also available there, and I hope that everyone uses it very well in their regions and their negotiations. But let's continue because we still have 15 minutes and time is wasting away. Well, to talk a bit about the importance of this survey and to speak of the results it brings, we were able to update some figures on the kinds of outsourcing we have in Brazil. We see expressive growth in the prototype phase. So outsourcing a studio for a proof of concept or a prototype is a trend. In app design, this has also been growing, software development, we saw some growth, as we said, across all the ends of the production chain in developing games. So it was very interesting to see. Of course, the market has grown, the number of studios has grown. This number went up, but it's important to see where you are and what you're really doing and delivering as your services. I'll go through it faster, okay? You can go into details if you'd like to see our website. Carol, over to you. Right, the main source of revenue for games, we have entertainment games, which are our focus and continue to be, but we still see a growing trend in the number of educational games being developed. This has been expressive. It used to be a trend before, but the biggest revenue, of course, comes from entertainment games. This is development per platform. Right. We still see the same figures there. And the biggest events we have in Brazil currently are Big Festival. When it comes to business, we have the Brazil Game Show as the biggest consumer event, where you can go and play AAA games, and SB Games, the biggest academic event in the country. So these are the three main ones. Now, sources of investment. This is the million-dollar question. Right, this is what we've been describing. Most studios are using their own resources, bootstrapping as we call it, and that's very common in the startup market. So of course it is the same in the gaming industry. And this means that not only does it require commitment from studio founders who need to invest in their own business with money or with time, right? Many people join just to contribute with their time. But what this means is that there is a big opportunity for growth. If you already have committed entrepreneurs who are investing in themselves, borrowing from family, friends, doing crowdsourcing, that's how they begin their game. And that means that this market has a lot of potential to mature if you can accelerate it through investments, private equity, venture capital, or whatever kind of investment that you can get even from the government. The biggest leading companies in valuation and revenue are these: Koku, Sioux, Wildlife, People Studios, Puga, Fanati, Afterverse, Gazelles, Taps, and Aquarius. These are our highlights for 2022. And concluding, who are the main players in our ecosystem today? We have Sony with PlayStation, but not only that, Sony Pictures also invests in gaming. We have Garena, Tencent coming in strong with investments in Level Up, via coming to the continent through Brazil. We have Abragames, Blizzard, Ubisoft, which is a household name. Microsoft has been in Brazil for a long time, Google and Riot making significant investments in Brazil. We had to hurry a bit at the end. Do you have any questions? But I'd like to thank you for listening. Thank you to everyone who joined us to hear about this data and the results of this survey, which is a new milestone from our industry. And now we're going to have a snapshot of our country, for our own country, for our government, and also for the international market. Thank you, Rodrigo. I'm going to ask Eros and Carol to make their closing remarks since we're concluding. Do you have anything to say, Eros? Thank you, everyone, for filling out the survey. I'd again like to underscore this recommendation to ask your fellow companies, smaller companies, to fill out the survey. We're going to have an open study with some improvements that we've already found to make it easier for companies to answer. This is for you, for the Brazilian market. We have many situations in which investors come to us wanting a snapshot, and we didn't have any information on Brazilian companies, how they are, how they live, how they make a living. So this is a milestone for us. And you can be sure that from this year on, we will attract more investments because of this study. And once again, encourage your partner companies to fill out the survey. Regardless of they like it or not, regardless of being a member of Abragames or not, because this is not a survey for Abragames or Apex, it's for you. So it will benefit all. So I'd just like to underscore that again. Help us. Thank you, Eros. And I think that's the main message. We want to have a conversation with all of our community. It's very important, and we'll only be able to mature as an industry if we continue to have a good conversation and if this kind of encouragement continues. Feedback is always welcome. If you believe there's anything we can improve, feel free to contact us. We'll see how we can include it in our next surveys. Of course, there are things that we need to do, but they can be done in several different ways. And it's an open invitation again from Abragames about any kinds of problems that the industry may be facing. We will try to take our voices, our strength to tackle these issues. About studios that are just starting out, if you believe that you should only do it later, I say to you, no. Try to do it from now. Try to understand your industry from the beginning, because even if you don't do what you think you're going to do in the beginning, you need to understand it from the very beginning. So being in an ecosystem, being in a group, being in an association, or at least knowing people from the beginning, from the first project and from the first company you open is very important. Because later, when you've matured, you know who to speak to, you know what to do. You're not going to be lost later. So it's important to be in the international market later, in an ecosystem that is mature. So that's our invitation to you. And if you'd like to be in the conversation, the best thing is to be a member of Abragames. We also have our booth here. If you'd like to hear more information, come and check us out, and we'll have the pleasure of showing you how the association works. If we could go back to the previous slide with the 3 logos. Right, thank you. I'd just like to take this opportunity, since we still have a few minutes left, I want to tell you about this. The first logo you're seeing is the Brazil Games Export Program. This is our program that we started as a partnership with ApexBrasil. So this is an agency that creates incentives for exports, and they've supported us since 2012. Abragames is a non-profit association that has members in the gaming industry in Brazil. So you'll see that all the chairs in this room have the Abragames, ApexBrasil, and Brazil Games logos. What we do is we support companies when they want to export. So the main trade shows, the main business rounds, training sessions, international PR, international press, all of it is in our scope. If your company is interested in being in a global market, you can come in and talk to us through the Brazil Games. You don't even need to be a member. All you need to do is to join us in this program. So if you are at the big festival, you'll see the business rounds. We have over 5,000 meetings scheduled for the next 2 days. And this is a result from the Brazil Games program. This is our expertise. This is what we know how to do. We're going to have Gamescom in Germany with nearly 50 companies from Brazil, and this is headed by Brazil Games. When you go there, you'll see a big booth with our logo and with the 50 companies who will participate in every activity that will generate business for them. And if you have any activities that generate networking, information, if you want to speak to a publisher, we'll be there opening doors, doing our work. This is how we contribute to the industry. We don't subsidize travel or any sort of thing like that. All we do is provide marketing and a good relationship. And this event, Big Festival, is the entry to the international market. We have 40 decision makers in the program. From Sony, from, I wouldn't even be able to tell you, Epic, Capcom, EA. So this is these are the ones who joined after we invited them, but there are over 100 others who came because they know about the festival, who have visited in previous events, who are here playing indie games, and they're often incognito. You don't even know who they are. So this event is an entry door to the rest of the world. We hope that every entrepreneur who wants to do business international can come to a festival like this before they go to a trade show, because that would be a bigger investment. So this is a great opportunity. You'll see that we have an incredible area for business rounds with 5,000 meetings, and we can generate historically $50 million in business at this event for you, not for the event. These are contracts that are inspected with Brazilian entrepreneurs and international entrepreneurs. And we know that at the end of the event, we have a business perspective of generating at least $50 million US. And of course, big business is not even declared. They will be announced with pomp and circumstance in the future. So this is what we do. We're very proud of it. Thank you for giving me these 5 minutes to talk about Brazil Games and Abragames and ApexBrasil, because without them supporting us throughout this journey of many years, we definitely would not have all of this to offer to you. Thank you, Maria Paula. Thank you to the heads of Abragames, and they are all volunteers. They're people who are giving their time instead of being in their companies to be here. I'm paid, but they're not.
Mas muito obrigada. Aproveitem.
Thank you very much. Enjoy this event.
Seja cordial.
Be cordial to every developer you meet. We know how important that is. So thank you, and that concludes our session. Thank you.